Are you tired of paying way too much money for hiking and backpacking gear? Or is maybe just the thought of spending that money in the first place keeping you from getting out there on your next or first outdoor adventure? I'm going to show you some inexpensive alternatives that work just as great. First up, let's talk about the clothes you wear when you head out on a backcountry adventure. Right? If you're out for just an afternoon stroll or maybe even an all-day hike, you don't really need to put as much thought and intention into it as we like you to believe. Yes, the talking heads here on YouTube are going to tell you need to buy the latest and greatest thing. Well, folks, that's because our sponsors are telling us that we need to sell that if we want to keep our channels relevant. Here's the beauty. I am not a sponsored YouTuber, which means I can tell you anything that you need to hear and it's not going to affect me. So what I can tell you, honestly, it doesn't really matter what you wear. Make sure you've got some comfortable clothes and something that's going to be breathable depending on the weather. You always want to make sure you have a raincoat with you, but it doesn't have to be a top-of-the-line expensive raincoat. This is, for example, a North Face rain jacket that I bought probably 13 or 14 years ago, and it has been awesome. This jacket has seen me through multiple continents, tons of hikes, and it has never let me down. But I didn't have to buy a top-end jacket. Recently, I invested in this simple Quincha jacket from Decathlon. It's super lightweight, super ultra portable, and the best deal, because of the conversion rate, I spent a whopping $9 US when I bought this jacket. I recently tested it on a backcountry trip last weekend. I took it out on a 2-day adventure. It was amazing how well this worked. This is my new go-to jacket for $9 versus my $150 North Face jacket, which, yes, I do love and I'm still gonna keep. But I'm not going to pack it because this is a lot heavier. And if this gets damaged, it's $9. It's not that big of a deal. Let's talk about our hiking pants, right? There's always a new latest and greatest in hiking pants. They're moisture wicking, ultra breathable, ultra portable. You've got the zip off pant legs. I love them myself. I've got a pair right here that I picked up from Decathlon a couple years ago. These are the 4 class. And again, these are great pants. Ultra durable, very, very comfortable to wear. They are a little bit heavy, but that's because they're an all-season pant. The reality is you don't need them. Quite often, I will actually go hiking in my everyday pants. You know, the pants you can buy at Costco with that extra stretchy fabric that you convince yourself they're good enough to wear to the office, but you probably shouldn't. Those are also great hiking pants. Those will cost you about $25, and if they wear out, who cares? They cost you $25. Don't break the bank on pants. Then let's get into our shirts that we wear, right? Think back to your childhood when you were out there camping with your dad. Did you have high-end alpaca wool that you wore? Or did you just bring a flannel to pull on in the evening around the campfire? This is really all you need in the evenings, as long as you're prepared for the weather. A fleece is nice. This one I picked up from Walmart, of all places, about 25 years ago when I was working a warehouse job and I had to work the night shift. It was cold, so I picked up this fleece. It has served me well for, again, well over 20 years. And it's a Walmart shirt. I didn't have to go buy a name brand, top-of-the-line shirt. Simple, easy, don't overthink it. When we get into our base layers, it's the same thing. A nice t-shirt. Understand that if you're in a wet climate, cotton is not going to be the greatest because it's going to trap the moisture, but as long as you're prepared for that, you're fine. When you get to your campsite, take it off, switch into a mid-layer, a nice lightweight windbreaker, let your shirt dry out. The key is making sure you control the moisture, and then everything else is just nuance and noise. I do also want to talk about socks a little bit and shoes, because those are some big ticket items that if you're not careful, you could spend an obscene amount of money on. When it comes to shoes, some folks are going to tell you have to have hiking boots. Others are going to tell you that trail runners is the way to go. What I have found is my trail runners work for 99% of my adventures, and I didn't have to, again, break the bank for it. Yes, shoes are going to be expensive, and I'm not telling you to go out there and buy the cheapest pair of shoes you can find. What I am saying is shop around, make sure you find something comfortable, but don't overthink it. If you've got an everyday pair of tennis shoes that you like to go jogging in, use those. You're going to be fine, as long as you're not in any extreme conditions. When it comes to socks, obviously, wool is going to be king. Wool is a great moisture wicking. It's got a nice soft feel against your foot, and it helps reduce on blisters. I think by now you've probably heard of Darn Tough Socks. That seems to be the brand that everybody is out there pitching, and quite honestly, they are the best sock I have ever found. They have a lifetime warranty, and you can pick up a pair for about 20 bucks. Or you can pick up a knockoff cheap brand for about $5 off of Amazon. Just as comfortable, but they're not nearly as heavy duty. I find I get about 3 months out of these things and they start to wear out. So choose your socks wisely. If you don't want to do wool socks, just wear some of your gym socks and make sure you have a spare set with you, right? Even if you're out there for just an afternoon hike, a spare set of socks in your kit is going to be fantastic. If you get your feet wet, you can swap out into dry socks in the evening so you don't have to drive home with wet feet or sleep in a tent with wet socks. All right, next up, let's talk about our cook system. Cooking for me, as you know, if you've watched the channel, it's kind of my whole purpose when I go out there on my backcountry trips. I love to cook. Even if it's just an afternoon on the trail, I'm typically planning on making a hot prepared meal. But that doesn't mean it has to be complicated. There are a ton of systems out there. My first cook set I ever bought was this Jetboil. This thing is probably 13 or 14 years old at this point. I paid a little bit more than I probably should have. I think right now this particular setup goes for about $200 to $250 depending on where you buy it. It's a 750 milliliter pot. It's got an excellent built-in regulator for temperature, so if you're up in high altitudes, this works wonderful. And it's got a built-in igniter, so you don't have to carry a lighter with you. Do you need it? Absolutely not. What I have found I've been using as my go-to lately is my little BRS 3000. This is the ultralight hiker's dream come true for a cook system. This little stove is super compact, super lightweight, and it costs you a whopping $17. I think when I bought it last year, I paid 13 something, so the price has gone up just a little bit. Now, this is a very cheap stove. It's unregulated, so you are going to use a little bit more fuel, but for what it is fantastic. There are actually cheaper versions of this same stove. So ironically, this Chinese-made stove has its own knockoffs. So you can get a knockoff of a cheap stove and pay about $10. I haven't bought them to try them, but it looks like it's the exact same thing. So you pair this with a simple titanium or aluminum cup, and you've got everything you need, and all in, you're looking at about $50. So you could spend $200 to $225 or $50, and you're gonna get the same result. Now, if you want to go even simpler than that, go buy a can of peanut butter, and when you're done eating it, this is now your cold soak tub. Put in your pre-mixed meal in here, fill it with water, toss it in your pocket of your backpack, and about 25 minutes later, you've got a nice cold soak meal. Now, before you snub your nose at that, think about how trendy this is in the fitness world right now. Your overnight oats, right? A cold soak quinoa and strawberries. You'd be pretty cool if you started doing that on the backcountry also. Now, when it comes to cookware, it gets a little silly too, right? I don't know if I've ever talked about my love for my titanium spoon. It's kind of a little weird, but I love this spoon. It also came with a spork version, which I use sometimes, but this is awesome. It doesn't mean that you need this though, right? You can go out and be absolutely crazy and spend $5, $10, $15, $20, even $35 on a titanium spoon, or you can go to Dairy Queen and buy a Blizzard. Now you've got a long-handled spoon for free. Or go to Menchie's and get a frozen yogurt. Now you've got a nice, durable, short spoon when you're dealing with your cold soak. Or for a $5.50 pot, it's still all you need for your food. And it was completely free. Yes, that's a little crazy. You might not want a plastic spoon, but just grab something out of your kitchen drawer and you're good to go. You don't need to overthink it. I also always carry a set of chopsticks with me because if I'm doing noodles, chopsticks are even easier to eat your food with. Ultralight, ultra compact, and if they break, not a big deal. Now I've got a fire starter. Don't overthink the cook system and don't overspend. There are simple solutions that are very affordable when you're first getting started. Next up, let's talk about water filtration systems. Having clean, safe drinking water is the key to a safe, happy hiking adventure. Whether you're hiking in your own state park in your backyard or you're hiking internationally, water safety is critical. And in this day and age, with massive population growth, farm animals and livestock, it's getting harder and harder to guarantee a clean, natural drinking source. So, as a preventative, I highly recommend you always filter or treat your water, regardless of where you're pulling it from. But that doesn't mean you need to spend an arm and a leg. Now, I am a huge fan of the Grail water filter system. This is the Grail GeoPress. I believe it's a 17 ounce. This will run you about $200. It is an over-the-top system that you do not need if you're just doing regular remote US-based hiking, unless you're in an area that's known for having high metal contamination in the water. The Grail GeoPress will remove everything. It is 99.99 effective on removing everything. This is the ultimate filter system, but it's incredibly expensive, it's bulky, and it's heavy. But yes, I love it. I've carried it internationally with me for a couple of years now. Take it with me anytime I do a remote travel. The simpler way to filter your water when you're in a local park or you're in a backcountry in a familiar area, it's just having a basic water filter. I use the Sawyer Squeeze. There's dozens of options out there. I found the Sawyer is a great option for me because it filters out some basic protozoa and keeps the water nice and clean and fresh. Pair that with a collapsible bag or a smart water bottle and you've got everything you need. Now, when it comes to these collapsible bags, that's another area that I kind of laugh about. Everybody is telling you to go out there and buy that Canuck or CNOC or NOC filter. I don't know how to say it. This is the exact same bag with a different name on it. I bought the NOC bag as well. I compared the two of them. They are identical, right down to the cap. The only difference is the coloring and the name printed on it. So I'm assuming this is probably a knockoff or the generic version that came out of the same warehouse in China. You don't have to spend 50 bucks on a bag. You can go buy a $10 bag and get the same result. Now, if you don't want to filter, if you want to go even simpler than that, I would recommend you at least carry some emergency iodine tablets with you. You can drop them into a 1 liter bottle, wait 20 minutes, and the water's nice and clean and fresh. Nalgene is a popular bottle that a lot of folks carry because it's a reusable bottle, right? You can use this thousands of times and it's not going to wear out. So if you're worried about your environmental impact and a smart water bottle just seems wasteful for you, a Nalgene will work great. You can find them for $9 or $10 online. I like these when it comes to cold weather camping because I can fill this up with hot water, throw it into the foot box of my sleeping bag, and I've got a nice warm bag when I crawl into it. But I hardly ever carry it just because it takes up so much room. Again, I find this Sawyer Squeeze smart water bottle in my bag, and I've got all the water filtration I need. Now, if you are a die-hard fanatic and you don't want to deal with any of this technology, a simple bandana, filtering the water into your cup, and then you boil that water for 20 minutes, you're going to have clean, safe, sediment-free drinking water. But it does take a little bit more time. Plenty of options. This is a virtually free source as long as you have a fire source available and a little bit of time and patience. But where are we going to put all of our stuff now that we figured out what we're going to carry? Well, it's time to talk about backpacks. And yes, not all backpacks are created equal. And if you're not careful, you can find yourself spending $300, $400, $500, even $600 on a backpack. But do you really need to? This bag right here is a 40-liter pack that I bought on Amazon 2.5 years ago. It is a diamond candy, just a generic backpack. What's amazing about it is it has a nice, comfortable hip belt pockets. It's got plenty of organization in it, and it is 100% waterproof. Think about that for a minute. All your high-end backpacks you buy, they're not waterproof because we're trying to cut down on the weight of the product. So, a 3-pound backpack that is 100% waterproof for $40 on Amazon. Is it ideal? Nah, not always. I do find that I don't have as much capacity in here for overnights as I'd like, but when it comes to my bushcraft days where I'm out there with a tarp and I'm trying to build a fire and cook up some food, this is my go-to bag. Now for overnight adventures where I'm trying to go a little bit more ultralight or ultra portable, then I turn to my Gossamer Gear G420. This is also a 40-liter ultralight pack. As you can see, it is far more streamlined and cut down. It's got a nice little mesh back. It's a single bag or single pocket where you put everything in there. Great bag, super comfortable, weighs just a couple of pounds, but it retails for about $250. No, I didn't spend that much money. I bought mine used from a gentleman for $75. I'm happy with that deal. The drawback to this bag is it's not waterproof. So if I'm out on an adventure and there's any chance that it might be raining at some point in time during that trip, I have to figure out how am I going to ensure that all the stuff in my pack stays dry and safe. Well, you can go out and you can spend a ton of money on these Nylofoam pack liners, which are fancy trash compactor bags that you're going to spend $8 or $9 for, or you can stop by your kitchen pantry before you walk out the door and grab a simple garbage bag. Throw this in your bag first of all, stuff all your gear down inside of it, twist it shut, fold it, and you've got a waterproof kit for pennies. Now, I also love to embrace Ziploc bags. Just about everything I have goes into a Ziploc bag, and I carry spare Ziplocs. And then just for extra precaution, I also have some simple stuff sacks. So I actually take my stuff that's in a Ziploc bag, put it down inside my stuff sack, and now I've got a double layer of protection, guaranteed not to get wet. On the stuff sacks, you can go down that slippery slope of spending way too much money also. You can go to some of the boutique retailers and buy a name brand stuff sack for $15, or you can go onto Amazon and you can buy a set of 4 with different sizes for $15. It's your choice. I'm not going to judge either way. If you need that fancy name brand, more power to you. Me personally, I like my cheap generic product. It gets the job done at a fraction of the price. Now, the one area I'm going to tell you not to scrimp on and take shortcuts is your sleep system. And that's for a couple of different reasons. Your tent or your tarp is going to be what protects you from the elements at night. And that is going to be critical for not only your survival, but also your comfort. So first and foremost, make sure you get a tent or a tarp that is going to be proper for the weather and the hiking style that you're doing. That doesn't mean you need to spend an arm and a leg though. This, for example, is the Durston X-Mid 2. Now this comes in a couple of different versions. It comes in the Pro version, which is the ultra lightweight Dyneema, and I think that's under £1, but that's going to cost you about $700. If you don't mind carrying a little bit of extra weight, and that's a 2-pound tent here for $225. I opted for that extra pound, and I saved myself $500. But it's a great tent, and it guarantees that I'm going to be safe and I'm going to be dry in whatever conditions I'm hiking in. You also want to make sure you focus on having the proper sleeping mat and sleeping bag for the same reason. A bad night's sleep is going to lead for a miserable day on the trail the following day and could even potentially lead to injuries. If your back is tight and stiff from a cold night's sleep, you're not going to be as loose and limber as you should be when you head out on your trail. So I always make sure I carry an inflatable sleeping mat with me that is a higher R value than whatever the night temperature is going to be. I do tend to overpack when it comes to my sleep system. Lately, I've been carrying an R5 value for my sleeping mat, which is an all-weather mat, and it's good for like 20-degree weather. I don't need it because I don't tend to get into areas where it drops into the freezing that often, but I always want to make sure I'm elevating a little bit higher than whatever I need to be in just to ensure my comfort. Now, if you want a cheaper version from an inflatable mat, there's some really nice foam closed cell mats that you can buy in the market. Nemo has something out, and there's some generic just rolled up foam brands. You double those up, you get some great protection, quite a bit of comfort. It's just a little bit bulkier in your bag. Then on your sleeping bag, this is another area where if you're not careful, you could spend $600, $700, $800 on a bag, but you don't need to. The bag I use is a Mountaintop brand. It's a generic brand that I had never heard of until I started shopping around. But this is their Mountaintop Hiking 600. It is a down bag and I love it. It has a comfort rating of 32 degrees. So when you're looking at a sleeping bag, you're gonna see 3 different rating systems. You're gonna see a survivability, an extreme, and a comfort. What you wanna focus on is that comfort rating. That's gonna tell you what temperature am I gonna be comfortable sleeping at. Not what temperature am I gonna survive the night, when am I not gonna die of hypothermia. You wanna be comfortable. So I make sure I always have a bag that is gonna be ready for 10, 15, or 20 degrees colder than whatever I'm sleeping in that night. And then I know a lot of folks like to double up their sleep systems by wearing their down jacket to bed or extra layers. I found that just makes me constricted and I feel too bulky, so I don't sleep well. But I do carry a nice thin, breathable shirt and a pair of pants that help keep me warm at night. But I don't like to sleep in my regular clothes. It just doesn't make any sense to me. And how about a pillow, right? I think everybody's gonna tell you how awesome having a pillow is. I do like a pillow. You'll notice this one I inflated it about an hour ago, and it's got a leak somewhere. And I cannot for the life of me figure out where that ridiculous leak is. But what I did my last 2 trips that I think I'm gonna start doing moving forward, this is the stuff sack that I use for my clothes. So this stays in my backpack as my dry bag to ensure that my clothes are gonna be clean and dry and safe. Well, I take whatever clothes I'm not going to be wearing to bed, stuff this back in here, keep a little bit of air in there so I can move things around. And this is the ultimate pillow. It is awesome. So my last hiking trip, this is what I used and I slept so well. This is the way to go. I don't need to worry about bringing a pillow with me anymore. I don't need to worry about waking up every hour to reinflate the ridiculous pillow. Use the gear you've already got. You don't need to reinvest in additional gear. But make sure that whatever you're using is going to be rated for the weather and conditions that you're camping in. I guarantee you, a good night's sleep makes a world of difference the next day. Okay, don't get me wrong. I'm not telling you to not go out there and buy fancy new gear. If buying top of the line new gear, brand name stuff is your jam, more power to you. I personally love testing and trying out new toys. New stuff is fun, but don't let that be a barrier for you to get out there on your next backcountry adventure. If you're worried about the price, don't buy the expensive items. Find what you currently have and learn to adapt it for what you need. When you're ready to make that investment into getting some top quality, high-end backpacking and camping gear, do your research, buy it one time. What I've found is if you buy something cheap and it's not quite what you want, then you buy something cheap again and it's still not quite what you want, and eventually you buy that product you're looking at originally and now you've spent 3 times as much on gear because of everything else that you bought. Do some research and buy what's going to be right for you. And don't let anybody else tell you whether it's good or it's bad. You're going to be the one to make that decision. And at the end of the day, folks, our goal was the same. It's to get out there on the trail, have an adventure of a lifetime, and enjoy this beautiful world all around us. So until next time, folks, I hope to see you out there on the trail soon. Let's go for a walk.